Buddy to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious today. We have got a potpourri of space history, current space history being made with the green screen photograph behind me of Falcon 9 uh, lifting off yesterday afternoon. Actually, a photograph that I took with about a 300 millimeter lens to show you that you can see it real easy from 9 miles away at Spaceview Park, a popular spot. It was a beautiful afternoon. We're going to see some pictures of that. Today, we're going to talk about the crew coming back from the International Space Station on Endurance, the Crew-5 Dragon spaceship. 4 astronauts will be leaving there. There's 11 up there right now. We're going to talk about the 14 people, a record being set or tied again for the most humans in space. And we're going to look at some of our good friends that visited the museum here this week. And also talk about Mars. You know, I'm a Mars nut, but 17 years ago, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter started orbiting Mars. It was only supposed to last about 7 or 8 years, and it's lasted way beyond its lifetime. And you're not going to believe some of the pictures that it has taken over its career, still working. And Mars is directly overhead at night, though it's moved about over 100 million miles away from Earth from 40 million miles away in October. Still worth talking about as a destination for mankind someday, the planet Mars. So Marty is with me here today. We're finishing up episode 770 of Stay Curious, born out of the pandemic, March 23rd, 2020. And you know, that inches us to tax time. And I just want to remind y'all that the American Space Museum's U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation is certified A+ for a place that you can safely give your donations if you need a tax-deductible break here coming up in our tax season. And that's how our proud nonprofit stays open, is by the sale of memorabilia that is donated or consigned to us on 5 to 6 auctions a year, as well as other donations and a few grants. But very humble situation here at the American Space Museum, and we know some friends, a lot of friends visit us this week, and we're finding that buzz when there's a good rocket launch. We are inundated with friends and visitors from around the world. So, of course, over my shoulder here is the vehicle assembly building. And Marty, that's the Artemis, what's left of it outside that they're working on to repair the Artemis gantry there. So pad 40 is the one off of my shoulder over here, and pad 41 is just beyond this Artemis tower, where United Launch Alliance launches a lot of satellites for the National Reconnaissance Organization, our spy satellites. Well, let's get kicked off here. We've got a bunch of images to show you, but we're going to do them news style here. So I'll put on my Walter Cronkite attitude, and let's get some space history under our belt, as there's our beautiful International Space Station orbiting the Earth. And these are the folks coming back today. Okay, left to right there is that's Anna Krikna from Russia. All right. In the middle is Josh Cassada. Nicole Mann is the commander of the coming back, and that is Koichi Wakata, who, when he flew on a space shuttle, a Soyuz spacecraft, and now a Dragon, one of 3 or 4 people who have done that. So this is them getting ready, relaxing on a Friday, getting ready for their trip back. They'll close the hatch on their vehicle at 12:15 a.m. tonight, Saturday morning. Then at 2:05 a.m. is when they'll undock from Harmony's module, the forward port of Harmony. Endurance will fire its main engines one last time at 8:25 p.m. Saturday night, sending the crew back to Earth's atmosphere, and they'll splash down off the coast of Florida at 9:19 p.m. All right, with support groups on a little ship there from NASA and SpaceX to greet them after 5 months, launched in October. NASA TV will have it live, and that is something, Marty, that the night ones that have returned, this is, of course, the fourth one, fifth one. That we might be able to see the streak if it's right. So they'll let you know maybe more of the trajectory tomorrow. There'll be some people that'll be figuring that out, but we might be able to see them re-enter as they fly over Florida one way or the other. So we'll be looking forward to their safe return from the space station that looked like this the other day, as 11 people are on there, 11 human beings, all right? And I'm not going to name all of them. I think we have 4 Russians, Japanese, okay, United Arab Emirates, and Americans on this together, keeping each other alive and safe, orbiting to Earth 17 times a day, where the only border that matters is that thin blue line that keeps us all alive here on planet Earth. So we're going to talk here in a minute with the 3 tachionauts orbiting Tiangong space station in China. We have tied a record again of 14 humans in space. Haven't hit 15 unless you count one of those suborbital Blue Origins was launched when we had 14 in space, and they added that up as people weightless. So, well, let's see here. Oh, we're going to say hello to Dave Stange on the left and Larry Pushkar on the right, covering me up there. Or no, there I am. And, of course, Terry White from yesterday's program. These Michigan Wolverines came down here on vacation, and you all are familiar with them if you've watched Stay Curious at all. Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Larry, for coming, bringing your families to the museum again. We really enjoyed your visit, and they're wearing T-shirts of the Callies, Paul Callie and Chris Callie there. So representing us well, guys, and we enjoyed the visit. We're going to see a picture of Dave here again in a minute, because we're going to celebrate 2 space shuttles of the month of March. All right, the month of March has got 59 human beings that have been launched on 10 shuttles through its 30-year career. 8 of them were women. So in Women's Month of March, we had 8 women launched, and we're going to talk about those women on Stay Curious next week, as we will be highlighting women in the space era, including a little program I'm putting together on all 3 centers of NASA have women directors, the main centers of them. So we're going to talk about the 8 women that have been to space on these shuttles in the month of March. Some very interesting ladies, including Shannon Lucid and Kathy Sullivan. Our first Shannon Lucid was on the Mir space station. A couple we met, Wendy Lawrence we met, Marty. I think she's the only one we met of that group that we'll tease you with, and hope that you come back and stay curious about that tomorrow. So let's look at this launch of OneWeb satellites. This is the competitor of SpaceX. They're a bigger communication satellite. They're built right across from the Blue Origin factory. They went into bankruptcy a few years back. Aerobus, I think, bailed them out. And they are launched about the 30 satellites on this beautiful launch yesterday afternoon. What was that, 2:17, something like that? And go backwards, Mark. We're going the wrong way. There we go. There's Dave Stange. Boy, he looks he's representing us well with an ASM T-shirt, binoculars, taking the picture, and that's the throng out there at Space View Park. Beautiful place to watch a launch, just 3 blocks away from where Marty and I are sitting in our Stay Curious studios. And there's Dave's wife, Jill Stange. They're in the pink blouse, and in the green back there's Ozzy, our rocket hobo. And I love these kind of pictures. Some people are intent on getting that photograph made on their cell phone. I don't say anybody with a real camera sitting there. And there's a couple people like those ladies in front there. They're just taking it in and getting the memories. So if you ever have a chance, on a vacation, of course, you're going to want to see a launch of anything. And Spaceview Park is a great place to watch it, day or night. And our good buddy Carlton Bailey sent me a few photos that he took of last night's launch, yesterday afternoon's launch, which had the double thrill of seeing the first stage return back to Earth. And I was just making a note of Marty that this was the 176th time out of 187 that SpaceX has returned successfully that Falcon 9. You're going to see that in a moment there. That's not the rocket launch back there, though. It is a Pad 41 there of our good buddy Carlton Bailey. And there is his launch there. Nice little artistic touch to that with the palm tree in the foreground. And in the background on his telephoto lens is the Pad 41 of United Launch Alliance. That is Pad 40 that this Falcon 9 is lifting off with its payload. And then Carlton got the coming back down. He said he was over near Port Canaveral, Marty. Not sure if this is a Jetty Park view, but there's how it looks coming down, folks, with probably about a 200 millimeter lens or something like that. And then if you paid Carlton, Marty, say, hey, I'll give you $50 if you line that rocket up with one of those lightning towers, you'd lose. Okay. Unbelievable shot, my friend. Perfectly lined up with the tower, the Falcon 9 coming back. That is the 3D printed rocket in the background that's now scheduled to be launched tomorrow afternoon. But good capture, buddy. And those legs are just springing out of the flame underneath that sooted Falcon 9 rocket that's been used before. And like I said, if you would have bet him $50 that he could do that, you would have lost. And that's what it looked like out of my camera from Spaceview Park. Pretty good view. You see the flame really good and the stick of the rocket coming back down. And I'd say we're probably 13 to 15 miles away there, aren't we, Marty? If that's landing zone 1 over there, we're the launch pad's about 10, and that's probably a little bit further south, at least 3 miles there. So, well, we hope that you've enjoyed watching a little peek at what it looks like behind the scenes or from Spaceview Park to see a rocket launch there. And as I get a swig of coffee there, one of these Fridays just chugging along, folks. But we got a whole week by and we didn't talk about one of the greatest missions of all in the Apollo era. Of course, Apollo 9, the mission that shook down for the first time the Grumman lunar module, and the tail numbers on that lunar module, Marty's LM3. And LM3 was taken up by the Apollo 9 astronauts of James McDivitt, David Scott, and Rusty Schweickart. They put it through its paces in Earth orbit, and a very successful mission launched on March 3rd, 1969. And March 13th is when they landed. So here on March 10th, they were doing still maneuvers with what they called the Spider, and then the command module was called Gumdrop. And they had to name each vehicle as a call sign, because if they said Apollo 9, when the two vehicles were separated, they wouldn't know which Apollo 9 they were talking about. So the crew came up with Spider because that's what the lunar module looked like, and Gumdrop because that's what the command module looked like. And then Apollo 10, that did the dress rehearsal, went within 9.5 miles of the lunar surface. They called theirs Snoopy, was the command module, and Snoopy was the lunar module, and Charlie Brown was the command module. And when we got around to Apollo 11, NASA said, we need some serious names, all right? None of this cartoon stuff. And so, of course, the LM5 became Eagle, and command module became known as Columbia, appropriately. Well, what a mission this was, and here's the emblem of the crew signaling the Earth orbit, the Saturn V rocket for the first time taking the entire lunar vehicles to space and being put through its paces. Everything was beautiful. There is McDivitt in the foreground. McDivitt, of course, was a rookie commander of Apollo. He's the first rookie commander of Gemini Titan 4, where Ed White did the spacewalk, and McDivitt, who he just lost beginning of the year. I think he made it to 92 years old. He took those famous photographs of Ed White's historic spacewalk. David Scott in the middle. This was his second trip to space, though he'd only done about 7 orbits with Neil Armstrong before their Gemini 8 thruster stuck and they had to do an emergency abort. He, after this mission, became the commander of Apollo 15. All right. And in the background is Rusty Schweickart on his only mission to space. A 10-day mission. Here is, of course, in space, the orbiting the Earth. Some very unusual pictures of the lunar module, the only time you'll ever see it with an ocean behind it or in any Earth environment. Also, as Marty knows well, and Marty looked up at the wall there because he owns this picture, and Al Warden actually signed this, though he didn't. He was a command module pilot of 15. What is unusual about this is that we're looking at the ladder, right, the side where the astronauts come down and the hatch where they come out, and you see that there is a 5-foot contact pole there. This is the only time you'll ever see that on a lunar module. Marty's pointing it out there. Marty, tell us why they removed that since you worked on the lunar module.
Well, you didn't know what direction the probe will bend when it landed on the lunar surface. And if it pointed up, like towards the ladder, and the astronauts backing down, it could puncture their suit.
Yep, so they didn't use it there. 3 of the indicator lights came on, a nice little Grumman blue light on the control panel, that they were 5 feet above. The astronaut was supposed to cut off the engines and drop that, as these legs had cushion shock absorbers in it. None of them did that. They rode it down to the flame till they felt them on the surface there. And that was kind of a problem with Apollo 11 because it didn't crush at all, and they had to jump up to that first rung, right, Marty, in there. So, at any rate, what a historic mission. Scott used a sextant to track landmarks on Earth and turned the instrument to the skies to observe the planet Jupiter, practicing navigation techniques that were used on later missions. The crew was able to track the Pegasus 3 satellite that was launched in 1965, 4 years earlier, as well as the ascent stage of the Spider. The reaction control systems worked well. Considerable testing of the command module took place, which was Scott's responsibility, while McDivitt and Schweickart did a lot of Earth observation photography. Apollo 9 splashed down at the end near the Bahamas. All right, this was the last splash down in the Atlantic Ocean until the Crew Dragon demo mission of 2019. So all the other Apollos landed in the Pacific Ocean. Who knows out there where the command module resides right now? Apollo 9's command module. I will tease you with that. But the descent stage of LM-3 Spider re-entered Earth on March 22nd, 1969, landing in the Indian Ocean of Africa. So that was the 9 days after the landing of the mission. So successful was it that Assistant NASA Director George Mueller said Apollo 9 was as successful a flight as any of us could ever wish for, as well as being as successful as any of the missions ever before them. Gene Kranz, of course, the flight director, called Apollo 9 sheer exhilaration. And they said, and Sam Phillips, who was the Apollo program director, to be succeeded by McDivitt later on, said in every way it exceeded even our most optimistic expectations. So kudos for the Grumman lunar module that got a little behind schedule to build, but proved perfect. And then the command module, again, another 10 days orbiting the Earth. This is after the Apollo 8 circling the moon in December 1968 without the lunar module. So we were basically on the triumph of this Apollo 8 success in December, and then in March we put the lunar module through its paces. Yes, Marty?
You got a comment from MarQ?
Because they were a sit wrench or a socket wrench, huh? To tighten them up. You didn't watch anybody doing it or anything like that. All right. Thank you for that question. And who knows where the lunar module resides? All right.
Scott Pook has a guess.
What's Scott Pook? What's Scott Pook say?
San Diego.
San Diego. Scott Pook is in Tasmania, Australia, and he knows where it's at. And there it is in San Diego, Scott. Thank you very much. I'm looking at Scott's name up there. Well, he visited us about a month ago. So glad you got safely back, mate. And I'm sure Cliff Watson is watching today in Pomona, Australia there. But there's the remains of a 1969 moon ship there, Marty. You can get right up to it and look inside too. Pretty cool, like the Apollo 7 at the Frontier Flight in Love Field in Dallas. But this is the San Diego Space Museum where this resides. So, all right. Well, we're going to segue from that into something that I'm a Mars nut. You go outside tonight. Venus is way high now. Jupiter in the west is almost in the tree lines. All right, it's going to be gone, but directly overhead is Mars. There's a couple red stars, and Mars is still the brightest one. The other one's Aldebaran in Taurus the Bull. And of course, this weekend we're going to spring forward a 23-hour day on Sunday, okay? But some golfers, gardeners, tennis players, all kinds of outdoor activities will now be extended 1 hour. And and most people do like that instead of the more morning daylight. So we're getting into that wheelhouse of the days getting longer by about 2 minutes a day with daylight savings switching us back. Sunset will be closer to 8:30 than 7:30 on Monday. So anyway, look at Mars, up on Mars, and we've got a beautiful spacecraft orbiting Mars called Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. And it started orbiting the red planet 17 years ago today, all right? Launched August 12th, 2005 from Pad 41 by Lockheed Martin on an Atlas V rocket. It has been supporting all of the missions on the ground as well as other orbiting spacecraft. There's 6 orbiting spacecraft. We have an Indian one. We've got a Chinese one. We've got 3 American ones are still in, so I think we're down to 5. Mars Odyssey is limping along. It's another old one up there. And we've got the Mars surface sampler orbiting. But the objectives of the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter were to observe the climate, all right, understand atmospheric circulation, look for signs of water, and boy, did it find real signs of water, map geological features, and provide data to support landing missions. It actually chose the landing sites for Mars Science Lab, Phoenix Lander, Curiosity rover, and Perseverance and Insight were all chosen by the fabulous mirrors that were sent to space, some of the most powerful cameras ever sent up by Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. So let's look. There's the vehicle in an artist's impression orbiting the Earth. Of course, the big antenna on top communicates with Earth. It's allowed to survive because it is harvesting solar energy on its solar panels from the sun, but the sun is half as bright on Mars when you're talking 200 million miles away from the sun, and we're 93 million miles away on the average. Here is what they call the high-rise telescope and other camera complexes on there. Again, that's what they basically did, was take a little 90 millimeter telescope and put a camera to it to point it down. And we have seen incredible things, including the landslide happening. Here are what we call dust devils. We didn't know that frequently on Mars are these little dust devils like on Earth. Here we're seeing one from in the upper left-hand corner casting a shadow. These cleaned off the Opportunity and Spirit rover solar panels, and they lasted, instead of 90 days, one lasted 7 years and the other 12. There's a fresh crater about the size of a car, about 10 feet across there, that had impacted and made that radiated line impact debris on the upper right. And then we've got the moon Phobos behind me here. It's a 10-mile-an-hour potato. You got a lot of drifting sand on Mars. Okay, and we're gonna go back to Mars. And Elon Musk wants to take 30 to 40 people first, and then hundreds at a time. There's a lot to deal with. One is the winds of Mars in its thin atmosphere really shift change a lot of sand, and we've watched sand dunes like this change, and these are enormous. You're looking at a couple miles scale here. We've also seen craters with the high-rise MRO. And Marty, what's going on here is we're looking down on a crater in those gullies in that dark area. That's water. That is wet. All right. From water that has leaked out from underneath the ground. The white areas right in here are frost. All right. Maybe carbon dioxide, but maybe liquid water. But they have melted and run down the sides of this crater. As sure as I'm sitting here, we have water that has flowed on Mars. And this is recent. This has happened. They have pictures of it dry, where you don't see that bluish dark area because there's no water. And we've got ice that is found in craters, like on the left. See how it in less than a year it melted, and a meteor again pounded maybe there, exposing that, or we don't know where that came from, and then it melted away. And this is incredible, Marty. Imagine a spacecraft orbiting Mars. Of course, it's got to go about 8,000 miles an hour to maintain it. But this is an actual landslide happening, where you're seeing as it rolls over and looking down, a landslide happen on Martian crater. There's the clouds and so forth. That is ice. This is an area near the polar cap. What's this, you say? Well, that happens to be the landing platform of China's Mars lander that landed a couple years ago. And the other object below it is the rover. All right, Zhangong. And the white you see, yep, that's the landing exhaust from the engines as this landed. And there's what it looks like as this Chinese rover set down a GoPro style camera, backed off, and took this selfie of its lander as well as itself. But here it is shortly after, right when this picture was taken, basically, a picture from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. What a powerful tool this has been. It's getting old. NASA really doesn't have new orbiters on its grocery list of spacecraft it needs. And that's going to be a problem going back to Mars. We need orbiters to communicate. Now, this is the rover Perseverance, as taken by Mars rover as it's about to land. All right, you see the exhaust of its hard shell. This is the parachute going on. This is just an incredible picture, because when this picture was made, here are the pictures. Oh, I don't have that picture. I got a happy birthday picture. Oh, I'll have to double check that. What's going on here is I was going to show a picture of the Mars rover taking pictures of the canopy of the parachute and all that's going on there. But that's incredible. We're watching Perseverance land, and it's been on Mars now for 2 years. Well, that's what's happened on Mars in the last 17 years in a nutshell for Mars Excursion Reconnaissance Rover, one of the greatest spacecraft ever built by NASA, and still operational. And its thruster energy is what's going to give out. Not all the instruments are working properly, but another amazing technological achievement for NASA. All right. Well, we have got an astronaut birthday. That's Saturday, March 11th. We don't want to skip this astronaut, because Mr. Kurt Lee Brown Jr., where is he? There you are, Kurt. Happy birthday to Kurt Brown Jr., born 67 years ago, March 11th, tomorrow, in Elizabethton, North Carolina. He went in the United States Air Force. and was selected in Group 12 of the astronauts, a veteran of 6 space flights. All right. He was a pilot for 3 and a commander for 3, 57 days in space. Most famously, he was commander of the return to flight of John Glenn in 1998, STS-95. But Brown had 6 space flights, Marty, in 7 years. That is not likely ever to be achieved by anyone soon, okay? He lives in Hudson, Wisconsin, all right, supposedly in my information. And that's Christopher Mick, our friend that watches Stay Curious, is an educator in Hudson, Wisconsin. He races airplanes for sport. There he is in the on the space station, or not space station. He didn't go to space station. STS-103, I think he did. But 6 flights, wow. The stories he can tell, sitting in the top seats up there. There he is. He's still a pilot. There he is with a not too a fairly recent photograph of Kurt Brown. So we wish him a happy 67th birthday if he's living up there in Hudson, Wisconsin. Hopefully he's doing some outreach there. I'd love to see him, Marty, at the astronaut encounter. Well, we've got 2 shuttles of the month that we want to talk about real quick here. And here's the night launch of STS-123. I think that's a Mark Usiak photograph, and Tom Usiak there. But on March 11th, 2008, STS-123, and there's their logo, delivered the Dexter robot in the Kibo Japanese observatory to the space station, okay? And there you see Dexter in the above the STS-123. That's the astronaut symbol, the star and the streaking lines there. Dexter kind of looks like a stick figure of a robot. And there's the Kibo Observatory, Japanese observatory in the cargo bay there. This was the 25th shuttle mission to visit the ISS. 15-day duration. Commander Dominic Gorey was on his 4th and last flight. All right, here they are aboard the space station with the crew. We had Bob Behnken. There was a rookie. He was the Crew Dragon 2 pilot. Michael Foreman is in there, Marty. We've met him, the mayor of a town outside of Houston. There he is in the middle on the right there in the blue. The mission saw 5 EVAs involving 5 astronauts, including Foreman did 3 EVAs. All right. The STS Expedition 16 crew has the green shirts here, and the blue shirts are the STS-123 crew posing for a family portrait inside ESA's Columbus module. All right. And that was Endeavour. A long 2-week stay. Boy, that would be fun to be up there for 2 weeks, wouldn't it, Marty? And the Dexter, we got a picture of old Dexter there. There he is. Now, would he count as a crewmate up there? And we could say 15 crewmates are up there. But that gives you an idea of Dexter. Goes along a rail that the astronauts put up there. And I'm not sure how much they're using it now. Would love to talk to an astronaut about that. But there he's got attachment here, and he's got a payload that he's moving around and the other thing there. I'm assuming Dexter's a guy. But the Kibo laboratory, boy, is that the hot setup. And easy to find on the space station, by the way, because it's got the L shape there. But also it has this outdoor porch. And this arm is to take things, set them out on the porch, and then you can bring them into an airlock right there, and then set them back out there. And I can't wait to talk to a Japanese astronaut someday to ask him about that porch and all the science that's being done out there. And again, you see pictures of the ISS. That's easy to point out that porch. Well, one other STS March shuttle mission we want to talk about is STS on 22 years ago was the first expedition exchange of Crew-1 on the left there, okay, and Crew-2 on the right. And that was done by STS-102, a crew of 5 veterans and 2 rookies. They spent 17 days, mostly docked up there when the space station was just Zarya and Unity, all right? And this included the longest spacewalk in history at 8 hours, almost 9 hours, by Jim Voss and Susan Helms, and they bookend the Russian Ushiev there in the middle. Surprised I know him, but I do. Krikalev on the right, on the left side there, Sergei Krikalev of Russia, and Yuri Gidzenko of Russia, and Bill Shepard in the middle. And Bill was the first commander, all right? And then you have your STS-102 astronauts up there. So on March 8th was the launch 22 years ago in 2001 of the first expedition exchange, all right? March 8th, 2001, okay? And that started everything. And now we're up to Expedition 68, turning into 69. But there is what the space station looked like 22 years ago, about the size of the Tiangong Chinese space station today. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. And there is our beautiful International Space Station. And Marty, as I pointed out, there is the Kibo unit that was brought up by STS-123 in 2008, 15 years ago. That's been up there. How cool is that? They've gotten a lot of science out of that, all right? All right. Well, we wanted to give you a little bit of comparison since we've got 14 human beings orbiting the Earth right now. We're going to lose 4 of them by tomorrow, by Saturday night, all right? In fact, they're going to undock by about 2 o'clock in the morning, but they'll still be orbiting. So when they come down 9:30 tomorrow night, we'll be back to 10. But this is what the Heavenly Palace looks like. However, it's not much bigger than the Mir space station. Record 14 humans orbiting the Earth. There's a photo of all the crew on the space station. There's the 3 up there on the 3 on Tiangong. And I wanted to get my notes on that. Where is that? Because I did just a tiny bit of research there. There's 2 rookies there, and the 3rd astronaut was the 2nd Chinese astronaut in space, okay? 2nd ever, and 17 years ago. So he's in his 50s and was in his 30s when he flew first time. And Chuang Li, the first Chinese astronaut, they weren't going to ever fly him again. He's too important, and he's involved with their space business there anyway. But I found that unusual that the commander, 2nd trip to space, his first was 17 years ago, and 2 rookies up there. I haven't added up how many rookies. That makes 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 5 or 6 rookies of those 14 humans orbiting the Earth there. And we know that Hazel Banks finds that fascinating, don't you, Hazel? And Mark Usiak is helping us watching today. Dave Stange, glad to meet your family. Buddy, your wife, I guess, and yourself. Gary Gerald, have a great weekend, my friend. Doug Forrest is watching in Los Angeles. Bill Whiting. Bill, we didn't shout out to you, Michigander, yesterday. You were watching. Christina Smith is watching. Steve Hammer, Larry Pushker, Scott Polk in Tasmania. Carlton Bailey from his hacienda. And Tom Usiak's watching, and Daniel DeYoung is watching, one of our favorite pilots that may have flown you around the country a time or two on his big Spirit airplane there. So, well, let's see, Marty. What else do we have that I wanted to show? Oh yes, comparison of these space stations. So you go, that Chinese space station is kind of small. Don't let the solar panels blow you away. Look at the middle. It's just, the Chinese space station is barely half, and it's just a couple tunnels. And there are the Crew Endeavor astronauts that we pray have a safe return to space, that all goes well, and that they've had the time of their lives, okay, there as we wish well to, let me get you their names there again. Kitna, as we're thinking, well, as I go backwards here, I can't find them there. 223, here we are. That, of course, is Anna Kirkina, Russian on the left, coming back. We've got John Cassida in the middle. Koichi Wakata is on the far right. And the commander of the spacecraft, Nicole Mann, there in the center. She's a Marine, Marty. Hoorah. So we wish him well. Safe journey, safe landing, and we'll be watching it, won't we? So thank you all for a great week of Stay Curious. We had 3 guests today you're going to want to check out on our YouTube channel. Gary Studi was the world's plant expert. You'll learn things from him. Gary Allgaier, retired NASA structural engineer that told us all kinds of stuff we never heard about the shuttle before. And then, of course, Terry White, the shuttle manager that talked about returning that first flight of Columbia STS-2 to space and all involved with that. Thoroughly enjoyed you being here with us today. Our museum's been full of tourists and rocket hobos here to watch the launches. We are so pleased about that. We've got a lot of great things in our gift shop. Thanks to Anita Truex, our office manager, that really manages that well. Anita, you do a great job. Marty, we got a comment.
Yeah, Larry Puscars. He said, I forgot to ask yesterday if you could get the astronomer back on to talk about the James Webb Telescope and what it has discovered.
Well, yes, we will get the astronomer back, Eric Perlman. In fact, Eric's going to be our featured speaker at the Brevard Astronomical Society meeting. And Larry, I'll send you the link to that so that you could watch that this coming Wednesday. But I'm going to get a date tied down for him. Eric Perlman of Florida Institute of Technology astronomer that's worked with the Hubble telescope and has some work that he's put in the queue to get on the web. So thank you for mentioning that, Larry. It was nice to meet you personally and your father-in-law. And all the best to you all up there at the end of winter up there in Michigan. Or Larry's going to be down here for a month, though, he said. So, Marty, thank you very much for a great Streamlabs job today and the entire week. Anything else we need to share with anybody out there?
Nope, we're good.
All right. Well, we are very good because you all support us. Tell their friends to watch our programming. We believe it's the only place where you can get some really interesting space news. And today we had a potpourri that we were glad you were with us to share with. So until next time, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to bridge the space between us on our next Stay Curious podcast, and come see us at the museum.